Nice to meet you, Maxine.
You too, Anne. You're very welcome to Tramore.
Thank you. Now, I know tragic events unfolded in this stretch of water over here in the last 200 years ago. Can you tell me about that?
In this weekend, we're commemorating a tragic event where 363 people lost their lives in Tramore Bay. It was the men, women and children on board the Seahorse transport ship. The 2nd 59th Battalion were returning from France to England, and then from England they were barracking against once more returning to home in Cork. After 3 days of plain sail, a dreadful storm brewed up, and the captain turned from his journey heading towards the old Heddegan sail and turned back, hoping to reach the safety of the port of Waterford. The ship was unable to round Brownstown Head, and with the mast and the sails broken, and can you imagine the enormous waves? The bay looks so calm and looks so harmless at this stage, but this is actually quite a treacherous bay. There's sandbars and it's quite shallow as it reaches into the beach line there. Unable to round Brownstown Head, the captain and the crew threw out the anchors. As it threw out the anchors, the ship wound round, but as it wound round, it wedged in Tramore Bay. But as it stood solidly in Tramore Bay, the ship had been compromised, having been sailing previously in the South Seas. It was copper-basted, but as it wedged into the water and as the anchors pulled apart, it tore itself apart, and therefore you had the catastrophic loss of lives. Had it been under other circumstances, had it ran straight into the bay, there was a great opportunity perhaps to save some of these lives. But because it was about a mile out on the bay, that all the crew could do and those that attempted to rescue was hope to pull people in from the ocean itself as the ship tore apart and people grabbed onto planks. And there's the dreadful sad story of how mothers, there's 30 children lost their lives here and 38 women, but could you imagine the attire of the women in those days? There was no hope for these mothers. Yes. But the mothers, they placed their children in travel chests, those large travel chests. Yes. In one chest, as it came on shore in there in the beach, what's called, it was opened by those attempting to rescue, and 4 lifeless bodies were found of the infants inside. And it's harrowing. People thought they had left war behind. They thought they were going to now live a life without war, back in their home territories, whatever counties that might be, Tipperary, Meath, Tyrone and Cork. This is where some of the soldiers originated from. They were heading back to live those ordinary, regular lives with their wives and with their kids. This, sadly, is where they met their end. And we could never possibly imagine what it might have been like on that day. But on a day like today, no one could possibly assume that such a tragedy would have taken place. It's sad in one way to think that it was never really remembered. It was remembered in the lore and the people of Tramore and always carried on, but a fitting memorial has never been placed. But now 200 years on, it's never too late to do the right thing, and they will never be forgotten about with our Cairn and with the whole year's events that we have throughout the stories and the exhibits and the writing, etc., and the paintings. It's been a marvellous year for the people of Tramore.
And Maxine, what is the legacy of the Seahorse tragedy?
There are many legacies of the Seahorse tragedy, which generally evolve or revolve around coastal rescue, coastal safety. But you're actually looking at one, the main legacy, or the most prominent feature of that is the legacy of the Seahorse. The 2 pillars there are the pillars of Brownstown Head, and behind us over here are 3 pillars at Newtown Head, and on the centre pillar is the Metal Man. The Metal Man is renowned to say, keep off, keep off, keep off from me, for I am the rock of misery. What the Metal Man actually is that he is pointing to the port of Waterford. He is saying, not here, don't enter this bay. It is a countdown system. 3 on Great Newtown's Head, 2 on Brownstown Head, and the 1 pillar of Hook Head. You are to enter the port of Waterford, the safety of Waterford, between the pillars of 2 and the pillar of 1, and this was how you're to enter. It was placed there in the 1820s, as I said, as a direct result. It wasn't until a number of decades later that the RNLI actually got their first boat in the bay in Tramore.
Tracy Dunn, you are the chief organiser for the Seahorse events. What's involved?
It's a commemoration as well as a celebration, because of course we're commemorating 363 people that lost their lives in Tramore Bay, but we're actually celebrating the coming together of the descendants of the rescuers and the survivors and relatives of those who perished in the Seahorse. So it's a feel-good commemoration. It means an awful lot to the people of Tramore, but it also means an awful lot to the descendants. We have the unveiling of the commemoration cairn, we have the ceremony and walk across the Doneraile, and we have, of course, the Ellie Orl is going to be in the bay. and then we also have the art exhibition up at the Coast Guard Cultural Centre.
Chris Hunt, you have come to Tramore for the Seahorse commemorations today because of your family connection.
That's right. I'm originally from Avoca, Michigan, which of course is a very Irish town, about 70 miles north of Detroit, very rural area. But my ancestor did come from Tramore, and he was one of the, they say, one of the primary rescuers of the victims of the Seahorse shipwreck.
And what do you know about him, and what do you know about his role in the rescue?
I know that he was a young man in 1816 when the disaster happened. I know that he, when they saw the people in the water, he went out to the bay up to his neck and dragged out a few people, and therefore saved their lives. And then afterwards helped direct to light some fires, and even brought some spirits from home to sort of revive them. It's very important to come back here and discover our roots. And this is such a beautiful town, very proud not only to be from Ireland, but to be from this specific area. It's just it's a wonderful place.
Now that it's all over, I'm delighted it went so well. The sun was shining for us today, thank God. And it's such an emotional day. We had to hold back the tears, but it's one day that I will never forget in my life, and I'm sure it'll be a memorable moment in all the descendants of the rescuers and survivors and the relatives of those on board the Seahorse, and they'll never forget it.
When I heard about the Seahorse commemoration, and my ancestor, my fourth great grandfather, Arthur Hunt, his role in the rescue of the poor victims, I couldn't be more proud. Just the fact that people have embraced my family here, the generosity and hospitality of the Irish people, I couldn't be more proud of my ancestor, and I couldn't be more proud of my heritage and the Irish people.
My relative died as a result of the wreck, and that was in January of 1816, and we've come from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, and it's been the most wonderful occasion, and it's brought closure on the event. Actually surprisingly emotional. And the generosity of this community cannot be spoken of enough. We're grateful. He's in good hands.
It's time now for us to say goodbye from this very tangible reminder of the immense loss of life in the Seahorse tragedy. It's clear to me that Tramore not only is a wonderful place for families to come and spend the day, it's also rich in maritime heritage. And so, from all of us on the Nationwide team, good evening.